Chapter 13. The Field and the Knower of the Field Definitions. Sri Krishna said, Arjuna, this body is called the field, and one who knows, this is called the knower of the field. And understand properly that it is I who is the knower of the fields, and the one who sustains all the fields. I consider knowledge as that which makes one understand properly the field and the knower of the fields. Now I shall tell you why the name field has been given to the body. 13, 7-10. Why it should be called field, where and how it is created, by which emotions make it grow, whether it is exactly 3.5 cubits long or not, and whether it is a wasteland or a fertile land, and to whom does it belong, and all its qualities are the matters which will be fully told now. Listen to them carefully. 13, 11-13. Ignorance about the field by Vedas, Shastras, etc. Vedas continue to talk about this field, and even logic began to talk about it endlessly. The 6 darshans became tired discussing it, and they have not come to any conclusion. Because of it, the relations between the various Shastras have broken, and throughout the world debate is going on for their coming to an agreement. So far nobody has been able to say whom this field belongs. But the power of ego is such that everywhere the matter is being debated and discussed. 13, 14-18. Atheists. Seeing that Vedas have tried to elaborate on it in order to face the atheists, the non-believers started arguing differently. They say to the Vedas that their arguments are false and without base. Some of the non-believers shed their clothes and move around naked, while some shave their heads, but the arguments they offer do not carry any weight. 13, 19-21. Yogis. Because the body will die and be wasted, the yogis opted for secluded life and practiced yama niyama, self-control. Because the ego associated with this field comes in the way of yoga, Lord Shiva gave up the kingdom and went to live in the funeral ground. Because of this resolve, he considered the 10 directions as his cover and burnt the Lord of Love, because he entices with pleasure of women. Brahmadeo acquired 4 mouths to gain additional strength, but even he could not understand anything about it. 13, 22-26. Karma Yogi. Some people who follow the path of action say that the field completely belongs to the individual soul, and the prana, the life force, is its tenant. In this house of prana toil his 4 brothers, Apana, Vyana, Samana, and Udana, c. 6-200, and mind is their supervisor. Mind owns bullock pairs in the form of the 10 organs, 5 sense organs and 5 action organs, and he labors day and night in the farm of sense pleasures. Avoiding the bed of righteous duties, planting the seeds of injustice, and using the fertilizer of sinful deeds, he gets the harvest of sins, because of which he is reborn millions of times and undergoes suffering. Contrarily, if he uses the bed of righteous duties and plants the seeds of righteous deeds, then he enjoys happiness for hundreds of rebirths. 13, 27-32. Sankhyas. On this, the followers of the Sankhya philosophy say that this field does not belong to the individual soul. He is only a wayfarer in this field, whose residence is temporary. Prana is an entitled laborer who guards it day and night. The field is leased to the beginningless Prakriti described by the Sankhyas. Since she has domestic laborers, it is she who carries out the farming. The 3 attributes which farm the field have been born of her. Of these 3, the Raja attribute sows, the Sattva attribute sustains it, and the Tama attribute harvests it. Then Prakriti prepares the trampling enclosure out of the Mahat principle, and gets the harvest trampled by the bull, which is the time to separate the grains. Then the evening of the unmanifestable, Brahman, approaches. 13:33-39. The intellectuals. The intellectuals did not like these arguments of the Sankhyas. They said, Prakriti stands nowhere in comparison with the Supreme Brahman. The will was sleeping in the bedroom of the formless Brahman, on the mattress of dissolution. He suddenly woke up, and being always of active disposition, he discovered the treasure of the 3 worlds as per his wish. Then, in the garden of the formless Brahman, the three worlds which had dissolved took form again. Then he brought together the barren plots of the five principles, air, water, earth, fire, and sky, and built the four kinds of life, those who are born from sweat, those born from eggs, those through mating, and those born from seeds. Then by making parts of each of the five principles he created the material world. Then using the rubble of actions and non-actions, he built walls on two sides and converted the barren land in the middle into forests. In order to sustain the comings and goings in the forest, he created the two tunnels of birth and death, arranging by means of the divine will that the tunnels will extend from the material world to the Brahman Orange Sea. Then the divine will, in collaboration with the ego and with the intellect as intermediary, arranged to cultivate the living and non-living world throughout life. Thus the divine will, which branched out of the Brahman, is therefore the root of the world. 13. 40-50. Naturalists. When the intellectuals said this, the naturalists, Swabhavi, asked, if one has to imagine the bedroom of the divine will in the village of the Brahman, then what is wrong with believing in the Prakriti aspect of the Brahman as propounded by the Sankhyas? But forget about these things and listen to the real facts. Who filled the sky with the clouds? Who supports the stars in space? Who stretched the ceiling of the sky, and when? Who decided that wind should always flow? Who planted the hair? Who filed the oceans? Who makes the rain pour? Just as these things occur, because they are natural, the field is also natural. It does not anybody's proprietary right over it. Whoever carries its burden and works it gets its benefits. It is not fruitful to anybody else. 13. 51-57. Fatalists. On this the fatalist said, if this were true, then how does death always rule over the body? The tentacles of death extend even beyond the time of the great Kalpa, time at which world is destroyed by deluge, when it devours even Satyaloka, the Brahmadeo's region. He kills the 8 ever-renewed guardians, and the keepers of the 8 directions, and the residents of heaven. And other weaker lives die and fall in the ravine, off-birth death, just by the breath of death. Free translation. Just look at the jaws of death, which are big enough to swallow the entire universe. Therefore we hypothesize that it is the death which rules the field. 13. 58-65. Debate by Rishis. Thus there are various opinions about this field. The Rishis in the Namisha forest debated on it extensively, which are recorded in the Puranas. In Vedas, the Brihatsama Sutra is very holy from the point of view of knowledge, but it has also not been able to fathom it. Many great poets also have used their intelligence to analyze this question of this field. But this field is of such a nature, and so extensive, that nobody has ever found out whom exactly it belongs. Now I shall explain to you completely the nature of this field. 13. 66-71. Constitution of the field. This field is made up of 36 principles, which are the 5 principles, or elements, the ego intellect, the unmanifest, the 10 organs, 5 sense organs, and 5 organs of action, the mind, which is the 11th organ, the 10 objects of the senses, pleasure, pain, desire, aversion, and the aggregate, sanghat of all these, the consciousness and fortitude. Now I shall tell you about which are he 5 principles. Which are the sense objects? What is the nature of the organs, etc.? One by one. 13. 72-75. 5 elements in ego. The 5 elements are the earth, water, fire, air, and sky. 13. 76. The ego is hidden and is latent within the Prakriti. When the 5 elements come together to form the body, it is this ego which makes this body dance around. 13. 79. 81. The surprising thing about this ego is that it does not affect the ignorant persons, but gets its hold on the learned ones, putting them into all sorts of difficulties. 13. 82. Intellect. Now listen to the characteristics of intellect. When desire, lust becomes strong, the sense organs, if they are favorable, help to bring in their objects and expose the individual to a variety of pleasures and pain. The intellect decides how much is the pleasure and how much is the pain. It decides where the pleasure lies and where pain occurs, which is a meritorious deed and which is sinful, which is pure and which is impure. The quality by which an individual is able to tell good and bad, small and big, etc., and judge the sense objects, that which is the basic means of gaining knowledge, and due to which the sattva attribute in a person grows, and which is the meeting place of the individual and the soul, is to be recognized as the intellect. 1383-89. Unmanifest. Now I shall tell you the characteristics of the unmanifest. The prakriti of the Sankhya philosophy is the unmanifestable. I had described two different aspects of prakriti, apara and para, when I explained the Sankhya philosophy to you earlier, 7th chapter. Out of those two, the second one, para, which is the life, or life force, is also called unmanifestable. 1390-92. Just as after death of the material body, all the impressions of actions throughout the lifetime merge with the karmas associated with the subtle body of desires. 1394. The five principles, and the creatures created by them, shed their gross qualities, and the place where merge should be called unmanifestable. 1396-97. The 10 organs. Now listen to the different types of organs. Ears, nose, eyes, skin, and tongue are the 5 sense organs. Once these 5 senses come to an accord, then the intellect starts thinking about pleasures and pains. The organs of speech, hands, feet, anus, and the sex organs are the 5 organs of action through which the power of action, which accompanies life and is present in a living being, makes its body perform actions. 1398-102. Mind. Now I shall explain to you what mind is. That which lies at the joining place of the organs and the intellect, playing around by its fickle nature, and with the help of the Raja attribute. It gives deceptive appearances like the blue color of the sky or like the waves in a mirage. When the body takes shape out of the 5 principles, elements, through the union of the semens and the ovum, the air principle gets divided into 10 parts with 10 different aspects, which get themselves established in 10 different parts according to the individual properties and functions of each. Due to its purely fickle nature, it gains its strength from the Raja attribute and implants itself firmly outside the intellect and above the ego in between them. It has been named as mind for no particular reason, but actually, it is only a concept. Because of it, the soul gets to be associated with the body. It is the root cause of the inclination for action. It strengthens the lust and always incites the ego. It increases the desire, strengthens the hope, and nurtures fear. Because of it, the duality, disunity is created, ignorance prevails, and it pushes the organs into sense pleasures. It creates conceptual world and immediately destroys it also. It assembles stacks of ambitions and disassembles them. It is a storehouse of delusion and is the inner core of the air principle. It has closed the doors of the intellect. This, then, without doubt, is the mind. 13-103-116. Sense objects. Now listen to the various types of sense objects and their names. Touch, sound, form, taste, and smell are the objects of the 5 sense organs through which knowledge reaches out. 13-117-118. Action objects. The pronunciation of vowels and consonants, the action of taking or throwing, walking, passing of feces and urine, are the objects of the 5 organs of action through which the body functions. These are then the 10 objects present in the body. 13-119-120. Desire. Now I shall describe the desire. that which excites the emotions after remembering or hearing about past events, that which generates craving when the senses encounter sense objects, causes the mind to run helter-skelter, and the organs to step in where they should not go. That which makes the intellect crazy, and that which has a liking for the sense objects, is called desire. 13 121 to 125. Hatred. The feeling in the mind when the organs do not get the desired pleasures of sense objects is called hatred. 13 126. Bliss. Now, bliss or happiness is to be understood as that due to which an individual forgets all other things, including one's body, because activities of the body and mind have ceased. The state of mind which causes the life force to be inactivated, but makes goodness grow, which causes the tendencies of the sense organs to be lulled into sleep, and in which the individual meets the soul. That state is called bliss. And the state of mind where these things are not gained is called sorrow. One does not gain happiness when desires and ambitions are present, but it comes automatically in their absence. Therefore, presence or absence of desire and ambitions are the causes of sorrow and happiness, respectively. 13 127 to 133. Chaitana, the aloof and unattached power of the consciousness, is called the vital power, or life principle, Chaitana. It functions throughout the body right from the nail of the toe to the hair on the head, and remains unchanged throughout during the three states of the body: wakefulness, dream, and sleep. It brings freshness to the mind, intellect, etc., and keeps the nature lovely and cheerful. It is present in some measure or other in all the animate and inanimate objects. 13 134 to 137 Taro. By association with the soul, this vital power, or life principle, puts life into the inanimate body. 13 141. Fortitude. Now listen to the description of fortitude or courage. The five principles are natural enemies of each other. Water destroys the earth, and is itself dried away by fire. Wind fights with fire, and is itself devoured by the sky. Space. These five principles come together in the body, and abandoning the mutual conflict help each other through their individual characteristics. The quality which causes this rare unity to occur and sustains it is called the fortitude or courage. 13 142 to 148. Sanghat, and the assembly of all these 36 principles, including life principle, is called the aggregate, or Sangha. 13 149. Thus I have explained to you the characteristics of the 36 principles which constitute the field. When these 36 principles come together, that aggregate is called the field. Figuratively, also it is called the field because the crop of meritorious and sinful deeds is harvested in this aggregate. Some also call it the body, and is also known by many other names. But whatever occurs, and is destroyed between the material up to this side of the Brahman, is all field. 13 150. 155 158. Attributes influences birth. Living creatures are born in various species like deities, humans, reptiles, etc. They are born so according to the influence of the three attributes sattva, raja, and tama, and karma. The details about these attributes will be discussed later, chapter 14. Thus I have told you all the characteristics and attributes of the field. 13 159 to 161. Knowledge. Now I shall tell you about the generous knowledge. For the sake of this knowledge, yogis adopt the difficult path of yoga, avoiding the attractions of a place in heaven and of the cities. People perform difficult penances, yajnas and other ritualistic worship, or jump wholeheartedly into devotion, or follow the path of Kundalini yoga, and in the hope they will someday attain this knowledge, spend hundreds of lifetimes in the service of their guru. This knowledge, which destroys the ignorance and unifies the individual with the Brahman, closes the doors of the senses, cripples the tendency for materialistic actions, and removes the unhappiness from the mind. Because of it, the duality becomes scarce, and the sense of equality prevails. It removes the arrogance and destroys delusion, and does not let the language of I and others. It uproots the worldly attitude and cleans the mire of desire, and embraces with ease the difficult-to-know ultimate principle of Brahman. When it manifests itself, the vital force which drives the world loses its power. By its light, intellect opens its eyes, and the individual rolls in bliss. The pure and holy knowledge purifies the mind, laden with all sorts of impure notions. By attaining it, the disease of I am the body feeling with which an individual is suffering is cured. I am explaining that knowledge, though it is really not explainable. It has to be heard and understood through intellect, because it is not visible to the eyes. But if it is understood once by intellect, it becomes visible to the eyes through the actions of the organs, just as the presence of underground water, when discovered by the deep roots, becomes apparent through the foliage. In the same way, the presence of this knowledge in the heart of a person is indicated through certain characteristic signs on that person's body, which I shall now tell you. 13. 162 to 184. Body signs on man of knowledge: humility. Because he lacks pride, a man of knowledge does not like to be equated with anybody, and he feels awkward if burdened with greatness and honor. He feels nervous by praise or honor, or if one openly applauds his worthiness. He does not let greatness to be showered on him. He feels distressed even by obeisance from others. Lest his greatness increase in public eyes, he pretends to be a simpleton, hiding his wisdom. Ignoring his greatness, he deliberately goes around as if he is a mad person. 13. 185 to 192. Being prideless avoids attention. He detests fame and does not like discussing shastras. He prefers to sit quietly, and he strongly wishes that people should ignore him and relatives should not worry about him. His actions are generally such that they will instill humility in him and appearance of being insignificant. He prefers to live in such a way that people ignore his existence. He moves around in such a light-footed manner that people wonder whether he is really walking or is being carried around by wind. He prays that his existence should be ignored. Nobody should remember his name or looks, and everybody should go away from him frightened. He always prefers to live in solitude and feels happy in deserted places. He is in sympathy with the wind, converses with the sky, and is friendly with the trees. He who has these characteristics of pridelessness may be considered as having attained knowledge. 13. 103 to 202. Unpretentiousness. Now, listen to the characteristic of unpretentiousness, inostensibility, and how to identify it. 13. 202. An unpretentious person does not speak about his meritorious actions. 13. 204. He makes a secret of his charitable and benevolent deeds. He does not talk about the favors he has done to others. He does not boast about his learning, and does not sell his knowledge for public applause. He behaves like a miser when it comes to expenditure on his own person, but he spends generously on religious work. At home he may be wanting in everything, but when it comes to charity, he competes with the wishing tree. In short, he is wise in the religious duties, generous in charity, and clever in spiritual discussions, but behaves like a simpleton in other matters. Though he knows perfectly well the path to liberation, he is poor in the worldly matters. 13. 207 to 212. Therefore, Arjuna, he who has these characteristics may be considered to be having knowledge in his grasp. 13. 216. Nonviolence. Now I shall tell you about the characteristics of nonviolence. Many people have defined nonviolence in different ways according to their own school of thought. 13. 217 to 218. Nonviolence according to Purvamamsa. It has been told rather oddly in Purvamamsa that some types violence, such as cutting the branches of a tree to fence the trunk, or satisfying one's hunger by cutting one's hand, cooking and eating it, are not violence but nonviolence. People perform yajnas for preventing drought. In the beginning of the yajnas itself, animal sare definitely killed. Under this situation, how can the nonviolence present beyond be seen? Where only violence is sown, how can one harvest nonviolence? But the greed of the performers of the yajnas is strange. 13, 219 to 224. Nonviolence according to Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, also the same approach, i.e. that of taking a life to save another, has been recommended. For preparing the medicines, the Ayurveda experts dig the roots of the trees. Some trees are uprooted with the roots and leaves. Some are in the middle. The bark of some is peeled away, and the cores of some are boiled. They bleed the trees dry, trees who have no enmity with anyone at all, by making cuts all over them to extract their essence. Diseased people are thus cured by killing the trees. They cut the stomach of live animals to remove the biles in order to save sick people. 13, 225 to 230. It is like looting the poor to distribute free food in charity, or like burning one's blanket to warm oneself. One do not know whether one should laugh or cry. 13, 231 to 234. Nonviolence according Jain religion. In one religion, Jain, they drink water after filtering it. But because of the filtering, many lives die. Some people, afraid of committing violence, eat the grains raw without cooking. But this indigestible food causes agony to the person and brings him on the verge of death, which is nothing but violence. 13, 235 to 236. Nonviolence according to Sri Krishna. Thus, understand that according to the ritualistic approach, permitted violence is equivalent to nonviolence. When I mentioned nonviolence first, I did not want to omit mentioning these opinions, hence I mentioned them first, so that you also will know about them. When one puts forth one's opinions, one has also to consider other opinions, which is the reason I discussed them so far. 13, 237 to 240. Now listen to the characteristics of nonviolence according to my opinion. If these characteristics are found in any person, then it will be found that he has attained knowledge. Whether nonviolence is ingrained in a person or nor may be found from his behavior. Similarly, the impression of nonviolence on the mind after one attains knowledge is as follows. 13, 241 to 245. Characteristics of nonviolence: such person treads very carefully due to compassion for the minute living beings, which he knows are present even in atoms. His path is filled with friendly feelings, and he is extremely careful about treading on the insects and other living beings under his feet. His sense of nonviolence cannot be expressed in words. 13, 249 to 251. He treads on the ground so delicately that if by mistake his feet touch any living thing, then it actually gets comfort from it. 13, 254. He feels that if he were to walk stamping his feet, then that the sleep of the all-pervading Lord would get disturbed, and his health would get affected. And with these thoughts he returns without treading on any creature. 13, 257 to 258. You will notice kindness even in his speech. When he speaks, love oozes from his mouth first, and then the words follow. As far as possible, he does not speak to anybody, and if an occasion for speaking arises, then fearing that his words may hurt somebody, he observes silence. Then if perhaps someone requests, then he speaks with love, and to the listener he appears like his parents. 13, 263 to 268. His talk, true but soft, limited but straightforward, is like the flow of nectar. Contradiction, arguments, irritating harsh words, ridicule, torture, maliciousness, obstruction, irritation, nastiness, showing false hope, doubt, falsehood are completely absent in his talk. 13, 270 to 272. Also, his gaze is such that his eyebrows are never raised. The reason is that he believes every living creature has a soul, and is afraid that his gaze might hurt it. He therefore generally does not look at anybody, and if at all he looks out of the inner kindness, then the creature at whom he looks feels satisfied. 13. 273 to 276. Just as his eyes are kind to the living creatures, so are his hands. Yogis are not left with any desires because of their fulfillment. In the same way, his hands are inactive because nothing more remains to be done. He does not like to take even a staff or stick in his hand, then why talk of a weapon? He does not stroke his body lest the hair on his body get disturbed. And he feels that cutting his nails is like committing violence, therefore he grows them. He feels shy even while raising his hands in reassurance, or giving a supporting hand to a falling person, or gently stroking a suffering person. But even moon's rays do not have that love with which he helps to remove a suffering by his touch. The movements of his hands have the character and nature of a good person. 13. 277 to 292. Now, regarding his mind, understand that the behavior of the organs I told so far are not different from the behavior of the mind. 13. 293. Mind expresses itself through the organs. 13. 296. If there is no place for nonviolence in the mind itself, then how can it be seen outside? Anything is created in the mind first and is then expressed through speech, looks, or hands. How can anything be expressed in words if it is not there in the mind? When the mindness of mind vanishes, then the organs stop functioning. 13. 297 to 301. Mind is the root of actions of the organs, and it functions through the organs. The desires in the mind are manifested through the organs. If nonviolence is well ingrained in the mind, then the organs function on its strength. The mind imparts the kindness in it to the limbs, and makes them behave with nonviolence. Thus, he who has abandoned all violence from his mind, body, and speech is the beautiful temple of knowledge. Not only that, he is the knowledge personified. If you wish to see nonviolence, the greatness of which we hear and read about, then you see that person and your wish will be fulfilled. 13. 303 to 313. Abodes of knowledge. Now that your outlook has become clear, I shall introduce you well to knowledge. Knowledge is present where there is forbearance, forgiveness without regret. 13. 339 to 340. Forbearance gets nurtured within a man of knowledge. I shall now tell you the signs by which one may judge this. 13. 342. Tolerance and forbearance. He is tolerant to all good and bad situations. He does not feel perturbed by any of the three kinds of difficulties: personal, external, and elemental. He gets the same sense of contentment with the expected gains as with the unexpected losses. He accepts honor and insult, pleasure and pain with the same calmness. Praise and slander do not disturb his balance. He does not feel uneasy by the heat of the sun, nor does he shiver by cold, and he does not feel frightened in any situation. 13. 343 to 347. There is nothing which he cannot tolerate, and he is not even aware that he is tolerating. He considers that all the sufferings and enjoyments a body has to go through are himself. Therefore, he does not feel that he is doing something out of ordinary. He who possesses such forbearance without regret imparts greatness to knowledge. Such persons are really the essence of knowledge. 13. 351 to 353. Uprightness. Now I shall tell you about the nature of uprightness. An upright person is impartial to everybody like the vital force, prana, which supports with equal favor both good and bad people. 13. 354 to 355. Its mental attitude and behavior does not change from person to person. He knows the nature of the world thoroughly, and behaves as if he has known it since old times, and therefore he does not know the meaning of mine and yours. He can mix with anybody, and he does not have prejudice against anybody. His nature is straightforward. There are no desires or doubts in his mind. He does not hesitate to express his mind before people. He cannot hide anything in the corners of his mind. His mind being pure, his actions are also pure. Since he is fully satisfied due to self-realization, he does not spend his time in thoughts. He neither reins his mind, nor does he let it go adrift. He does not have deceit in his mind, nor vagueness in his words, and he never behaves with ill will with anybody. All his actions are straightforward, without deceit, and pure, and his 5 vital airs also are always free. A person having these qualities is to be understood as uprightness personified, and knowledge resides in him. 13,357 to 368. Devotion to Guru. Now I shall tell you about the method of devotion to one's Guru. This service of the Guru is the birthplace of all fortunes, and makes an individual even in sorrowful state to attain Brahman. Listen with complete attention. 13,369 to 371. He who has dedicated his mind and body to the Guru tradition is the storehouse of Guru devotion. His thoughts are about the place of abode of his Guru. He rushes to welcome even the wind blowing from that region and requests it to visit his home. Out of the mad love he has for the Guru, he likes to talk only about the direction in which his Guru lives. He considers Guru's home as his own legacy, but being bound by Guru's orders, he has to live in his own place. Then he longs for the release from Guru's orders and an opportunity to meet him, and in this mood a moment feels like 1,000 years to him. If somebody arrives from Guru's village or Guru himself sends someone, then he feels like person revived from death. 13,374 to 380. He feels elated even by the name of his Guru's tradition. If you find anybody with this kind of love for the Guru tradition, then understand that knowledge is always at his service. 13,382 to 383. Then with great love in his heart he meditates on the form of his Guru. By installing that form in his pure heart, he himself becomes the articles of worship, or he installs his Guru like Shivalinga in the temple of bliss, situated in the premises of knowledge and bathes with the nectar of meditation. Then when the sun of self-realization rises, he fills the basket of intellect with flowers of pure feelings and offers them to the Guru as Lord Shiva. He considers all the 3 times, i.e. morning, noon, and evening, as auspicious for this worship, and burns the myrrh of ego, and ever waves arti with the lamp of knowledge. He offers his Guru the food of non-duality, and taking him to be Shivalinga, serves like its priest. 13,385 to 390. Sometimes his intellect imagines his Guru to be the husband lying on the bed of life, and experiences his loving admiration. Sometimes there is such strong waves of love in his mind that he calls the love as the ocean of milk, and the limitless bliss experienced by meditating there, same as the bed of the great Shesha, the serpent, where his Guru is relaxing in the form of Lord Vishnu. And he himself becomes his consort Lakshmi, serving him. He stands before him becoming Garuda as well, and becomes Brahmadeo created from his navel. And with the love for his Guru, he experiences the bliss of meditation within his mind. 13,391 to 395. Sometimes on the strength of devotion, he fancies his Guru as his mother, and lying on her lap, enjoys the breast milk. Or imagining his Guru to be a cow under the tree of knowledge, becomes its calf. Sometimes an idea that he is a fish in the waters of his Guru's benevolence flashes in his mind. He imagines the Guru's benevolence to be a shower of nectar, watering the plant of attitude of service. 396 to 399. See how limitless his love is. Sometimes he considers himself to be just hatched chick without eyes, or wings of his Guru, and imagining him to be the mother bird gets fed by her beak. Thus, just as when waves arise one after other at high tide, he goes from meditation to meditation by the love for his Guru. 13,400 to 402. Now I shall tell you how he serves the Guru externally. He resolves, I will serve my Guru in the best possible way, and Guru will become pleased by it, and tell me affectionately to ask for something. Once my master is pleased with my service, I shall pray to him thus, O Master, let me be your entire entourage. I shall be the articles whichever are needed for your service, and you will see the wonder of my service. Guru is a mother to many. He will be mother to me alone, and I shall make him say it on oath. 13. 403 to 410. I shall arrange such that the Guru will be obsessed with me, and will be dedicated only to me, and will shower his love only on me. 13. 411. Thus runs his mind in fanciful thoughts. He says, I shall be the place of abode of my Guru, and serve him becoming his servant. I shall be the threshold which my Guru crosses, and I shall also be the doors of the house as well as the doorkeeper. I shall be his sandals, and I myself will make him wear them. I shall be his umbrella too, and I myself will hold it over him. I shall be his vanguard and warn him of the ups and downs of the ground before him. I shall be the fly swap, the valet, the server of water jug for washing hands and mouth, and I shall be the clean basin to receive the mouthwash. I shall be the server of the betel leaf and also the residue which is spitted out, and I shall be the one to serve him in giving bath. 13. 412 to 420. I shall be the seat, ornaments, clothes, applications like sandal paste, etc. of my Guru. I shall become the cook and serve him food, wave the lamp round him. When the Guru sits for his meals, I shall seat with him, and later I shall come forward to offer him the betel leaf. I shall remove his dish, spread his bed, and massage his legs. I shall be his throne, and the Guru will sit on it. Thus, I shall fulfill my vow to serve him. 13. 421 to 425. There will be a miracle by which I shall be whatever Guru's mind turns to. I shall be the countless words that enter Guru's ears, and I shall become everything that touches his body too. I shall be the forms which my Guru's affectionate eyes see. I shall be the eatables which his tongue will savor, and shall serve the nose by becoming a fragrance. 13. 426 to 429. Thus he feels that he should pervade all things to serve his Guru from outside as long as he lives. But he feels that even after death, he should serve his Guru. Listen to how he thinks. 13. 430 to 431. He thinks, wherever the feet of my Guru touch, I shall mix the earth principle of my body into that earth, and where he will touch water, I shall mix the water principle of my body into it. I shall mingle the fire principle from my body into the light of the lamps used for waving around the Guru, and those lighted in his temple. I shall merge the life principle into the fly, swat, and the fan of my Guru, and be the breeze that comforts his body. Whichever space my Guru goes with his entourage, I shall introduce the part of my sky, space, principle in it. But on no account I shall allow the service of my Guru be interrupted, whether during my life or after death, and neither shall I let other people to serve my Guru. Eons will pass while I serve my Guru thus. 13. 432 to 437. He who holds such courage and serves his Guru with limitless devotion does not count days or nights, nor the extent of burden. On the other hand, he feels happier if Guru asks him to do more. Even if the tasks Guru tells him to do are bigger than the sky, he carries them out single-handed. In this respect, his body competes with his mind and completes the task. Sometimes he stakes even his life in order to fulfill Guru's commands, even made in jest. He strains his body in Guru's service, gets strength from Guru's love, and becomes the mainstay of Guru's orders. He derives respectability from his Guru's tradition and is polite to his brother disciples, and is addicted to Guru's service. He considers the rules of his guru's tradition as the prescribed duties for his caste and devotional service to his guru as his daily duty. To him, guru is the place of pilgrimage. Guru is the deity, mother and father, and there is nothing other than guru's service. Guru's door is his everything, and he has brotherly love for all who serve his guru. He has the mantra given by his guru always on his tongue, and except for his guru's words, he does not tough any shastras. To him, the water which his guru's feet have touched are superior to all other holy waters from the three worlds. If by chance he gets leftover food from his guru, he prefers it to the bliss of samadhi. Even a particle of dust raised when his guru walks is like the bliss from liberation to him. There is no end to how much one can talk about his devotion to his guru. 13. 438 to 452. Dnyaneshwari Maharaj says, I am saying all this because I am overcome by feelings of devotion to my guru. One who desires devotion does not ask anything other than guru service. He is the home of self-realization, and because of him knowledge itself gets respectability, and considering him as God becomes his devotee. In such a person lies knowledge sufficient for the whole world, and to spare. I am extremely anxious about Guru's service, and therefore I have described it extensively, but I am handicapped in all respects in this regard. However, the extreme love I have in my heart for my Guru compelled me to expand on this topic. I am praying him to accept it and give me an opportunity to serve him, so that I shall be able to explain this book further in a better way. 13. 453 to 460. Purity. Sri Krishna continued, like camphor which is clean from outside as well as inside, purity is seen in that sage both externally and internally. 13. 462. From outside he has become pure by his actions, and from inside by his knowledge. 13. 464. Arjuna, to keep the body clean without the internal purity is nothing but mockery. 13. 468. If there is knowledge in the mind, then one automatically attains external purity. How otherwise can pure knowledge and pure action be found together? Therefore, Arjuna, he who has cleaned himself from outside by actions and inside by knowledge, is pure both from inside and outside. What more only purity remains in such a person? Pure feelings in the mind are reflected in the body. Even if he comes in contact with sense objects, through the sense organs, passions do not touch him. 13. 473 to 479. When heart is pure, desires and doubts do not survive, but one knows what is proper and improper. The mind of such a person does not get affected by doubts. Arjuna, this is called purity, and in whomsoever you see it, know for sure that knowledge also occurs in him. 13. 482 to 484. Steadfastness. A person in whom steadfastness occurs is the life of knowledge. Even though the natural actions of his body go on externally, his mind remains undisturbed internally. 13. 485 to 486. His mind does not get discouraged by calamities. He is not tortured by poverty or pain, nor does he tremble from fear and sorrow. And he is not frightened even by the approach of death. His straightforward mind does not waver even under pressure from hope or pain, or by the rumblings of various diseases. 13. 492 to 494. His mind does not waver when he has to face slander, insult, punishment, desire, greed. 13. 495 to 496. Arjuna, this state is what is called steadfastness, and whosoever has it ingrained in him is the treasure cove of knowledge. 13. 501. That sage takes care his mind, and does not allow it to go near sense objects. 13. 504. He keeps a stern watch on the tendencies of his mind, and deliberately controls his organs by self-control and self-restraint. Then, by steadying himself, in the three bandhas. He fixes his consciousness in the central nerve sushumna and steadies the meditation in samadhi. Then his consciousness unifies with the divine energy and merges in it. This is what is called controlled state of the mind. Knowledge is manifested where it occurs. He whose commands are respected by the mind is the knowledge personified. 13:508 to 512. Dispassion, and he is ever dispassionate in his mind regarding the sense pleasures. 13:513. He does not even like the topic of sense pleasures mentioned, and does not permit the senses to come in contact with the sense pleasures. His mind is apathetic to sense pleasures, and his body also becomes lean. Even then he likes shama, that is control of the mind and restraint of senses. He constantly performs penances and austerities, and living among people is like a calamity to him. He likes to practice yoga and live in isolation, and he cannot stand crowds. 13:517 to 520. He finds worldly pleasures and heavenly enjoyment distasteful. This kind of detachment from the sense pleasures is a sign of self-realization. Understand that knowledge resides in a person who has developed such dislike for worldly and heavenly pleasures. Like a man of desires, he performs yajnas, builds lakes, prepares gardens, etc. for public, but he does not carry the sense of pride of having done these things. 13:521 to 525. He spares no efforts in performing his daily and incidental duties appropriate to his caste. But ego, about having done them, or that the performance was successful, because his doing it does not touch his mind. 13:526 to 527. This characteristics of his mind is called egolessness. There is no doubt that knowledge occurs where this is fully evident. 13:534 to 535. Awareness about evil of birth, death, etc. He observes caution even when birth, death, old age, pain, disease, and sin are far away, 536, and is careful to ensure that he is not reborn because he does not forget the pains of the previous birth. He says to himself, "Alas, I am born through the mixing of semens with impure blood, and came out through the urinary channel. Then I licked the sweat on the breast of my mother." Thus feeling disgusted about he resolves not to do anything which will cause him to be reborn. 13:539 to 541. The sense of shame of having been born does not leave his mind. Even if death is very far away in future, he is alert about it right from birth. 13:544 to 545. He lives with a dejected mind, thinking of death. Having received the warning of the old age while in youth itself, he listens to things worth hearing, visits places of pilgrimage, commits good quotations to memory, and gives away wealth in charity before the organs become weak and useless, because the mind may not remain pure after such a situation is reached. He ponders in detail on self-realization. 13:576 to 581. He who remembers that he is going to become old someday, and takes steps by doing righteous actions while in youth itself before getting disabled by old age, is to be considered as having knowledge. 13:587. Detachment. Now I shall tell you about one more strange characteristic of a man of knowledge. He is very detached towards his body. He does not have any affinity for his home, and feels detachment towards his wealth. He lives in the world respecting the precepts of Vedas. Such a person who does not keep desire towards wife, son, and property is where knowledge takes shelter. His mind does not waver by pain or pleasure, and his sense of balance does not change. Understand that knowledge actually exists in such a person. 13:594 to 603. Liking for seclusion. He is resolved in his mind that there is nothing good in this world except me. He has decided that there is no goal in this world other than me, and he has developed so much love for me that we both have become one. Even after becoming one with me, he keeps on worshipping me with devotion in all sorts of ways. He who becomes one with me with dedication and worships me is knowledge personified. He who likes to live at places of pilgrimage, holy riverbanks, excellent forests and caves, he who prefers to live in a cave in the mountains or on the shores of a lake, and does not like living in cities, he who likes seclusion and dislikes living in villages, is knowledge in the guise of a person. I shall tell some more characteristics of knowledge to explain its nature further. 13. 604 to 615. Certain that knowledge leads to self-realization, he has decided with certainty that except for the knowledge by which the entity called Supreme Soul may be experienced, all other types of knowledge through which Ona gains the worldly life and heaven are all ignorance. He gives up the desire to gain a place in heaven, ignores the worldly matters, and keeping his attention in self-realization becomes engrossed in it. He directs his mind and intellect only towards self-realization. His intellect becomes steady with the definite understanding that knowledge of the self alone is real, and knowledge of any other kind only leads to delusion. There is no doubt at all that knowledge occurs in such a person. And once the knowledge thus gets completely ingrained in his mind, then becomes one with me. But just as person who has just sat down cannot be said to have been sitting around similarly unless knowledge becomes fixed in a person, he cannot be called a person of knowledge. Then he steadies his sights on the Brahman, the object to be known, which is the fruit of gaining pure knowledge. If after gaining knowledge one does not experience the Brahman, then it is as good as not gaining the knowledge. 13. If the intellect cannot reach the Supreme Brahman in the light of knowledge, then it must be considered as blind. Therefore, he gets the right desire of gaining that knowledge by which he can see the Supreme Brahman wherever he casts his eyes, and he finally gains that knowledge. His intellect has developed as much as his knowledge, therefore no words are needed to tell that he is the knowledge personified. Therefore, one need not wonder at my saying that he whose intellect has met the Supreme Brahman in the light of knowledge has become knowledge. 13. 627 to 633. Thus Sri Krishna explained the 18 characteristics of a person of knowledge. He then said, "Now I shall also reveal to you what is known as ignorance along with its characteristics." 13. 653. Ignorance, understand that what is not knowledge automatically becomes ignorance. I shall tell you some of its main signs. An ignorant person lives for status. He eagerly awaits honor and is pleased by felicitations. He who is stiff with pride and does not bend should be considered as the abode of ignorance. He brags about his religious actions and makes a big noise about his learning. He makes public announcements of his good deeds, and all his actions are for getting prominence and greatness. He deceives his followers by external appearances by applying ash, sandal paste, etc. to the body. Understand that such a person is a mine of ignorance. 13. 656 to 661. Cruelty. He whose actions make the whole world suffer, whose casual words even prick like a spear, and whose all plans are more dangerous than poison, may be considered as possessing a lot of ignorance. His life is the home of violence. 13. 662 to 662 to 64. Dada. Slaves to emotions. He becomes elated by meeting his loved ones and depressed when they depart. He feels pleased by hearing his own praise, and if he hears even slight criticism, he becomes unhappy. He who cannot bear the onslaughts of mental emotions may be considered as completely ignorant. 13. 665 to 668. Secretive. His talk appears to be frank outwardly, but actually he is very secretive. He shows friendship towards one but helps another. He somehow or other maintains good relations with straightforward type of persons, and wins the minds of good people with an ultimate aim of harming them. It is a fact such a person has ignorance. 13. 669 to 672. Disrespect for Guru. He is ashamed of his Guru tradition, and he does not like to serve his Guru. He learns from his Guru, but is disrespectful to him. To even utter the name of such person is like using the tongue to eat food from a Shudra, prohibited food. But I had to do it while telling you the characteristics of ignorance. Such a sin can be atoned by uttering the name of a Guru's devotee. 13. 673 to 676. Doubts and greed. An ignorant person who neglects his duties, has his mind full of doubts, is impure from inside and outside. Due to greed of wealth, he does not care about whether it belongs to him or others. He is very loose regarding women. He does not feel shame if he misses the usual time for performing his prescribed actions or his incidental duties. He has no shame in doing sinful deeds and no liking for righteous deeds. His mind is always full of doubts, and he always has his eyes on money. Understand that such a person is like a statue of ignorance. 13. Fickle-minded. He deviates from his resolves for the sake of personal gains. He gets shaken by frightful situations. He gets engrossed in flights of imagination. His mind gets totally lost by unpleasant news. He cannot remain steady in one place unless he falls down, otherwise he goes on wandering. Such a person is full of ignorance. He is fickle-minded like a monkey, and he does not have the strength of determination in him. He is not afraid of doing prohibited actions. He abandons penances halfway, kicks away righteousness, and does not bother about the rules of the rituals. He does not shun sinful actions, and does not have liking for righteous actions. He tramples on the bounds of shame. He does not bother about family traditions and about what is proper or improper. His mind wanders unrestrained in thoughts of sense pleasures. 13. 685, 699. Such a person is rich in ignorance. 13. Seven-toned. Passion lover. He does not give up the desire for sense pleasures, not only while he lives, but after death also, and makes preparations while he lives in order to attain heaven after death, for the sake of pleasures there. He struggles incessantly for bodily pleasures. He prefers to actions where he can fulfill the desire of enjoying their fruit. If he sees a dispassionate saint, he considers it as an impure incident and takes bath to clean himself. The sense pleasures may get tired of him, but he does not get tired of them. 13. 703 to 705. For their sake he will even jump in fire, and goes around exhibiting this nature like an ornament. 13. 7-7. Terun. Infatuation with family. From birth until his death he incessantly toils for the pleasures, and not minding the troubles he loves them more and more. He is infatuated with parents during childhood. When that is over he gets attracted during his youth to female body, and while he is busy enjoying the marital life, old age approaches, when he directs that same love towards his children. Like a congenital blind person, he spends all his time with his children, but he never gets tired of the sense pleasures until his death. There's no limit to ignorance in such a person. Now listen to some more characteristics of ignorance. 13. 79 to 713. False pride and jealousy. He performs his duties sticking to the I am the body impression, and feels disturbed if there are any shortcomings in his performance. Proud of his youth and learning, he goes around with stiff posture and says, I alone am great and rich. Who can compare his behavior with mine? He becomes stiff with the ego that there is none as great as himself, that he knows everything, and that he is popular. 13. 714 to 717. He is jealous of virtuous persons, proud of his own learning and of the strength he has gained from penances and of his knowledge. You will see him swollen by pride. He does not bend, nor feel kindness. Even virtuous persons cannot bring him to senses. I definitely tell you that ignorance of such a person is on the increase. 13, 724 to 727. Tabasura Dawandi forgets birth-death cycles. Arjuna, he bothers about his household, body and wealth, but not about his past and future births. 13, 728. Even when the body is infected and the 9 apertures of the body leak, he does not regret the reasons due to which he has reached that state. He was simmering in filth for 9 months in the cave of mother's womb, he got. But he neither remembers that discomfort nor the pains during the birth. He does not heal nauseated by seeing babies wallowing in feces and urine, and neither does he think about the fact that he has just finished his last lifetime, and the next lifetime is approaching. Not only that he does not worry about death while the life progresses rapidly. He is so sure that he will continue to live that he refuses to accept the possible existence of death. 13. (32 to 732 to 738). While he is engrossed in sense pleasures, he does not realize that death is approaching as he continues to remain alive. He considers as real only the growth of his body and the sense pleasures. But he does not realize that when a prostitute offers one everything, that is where his destruction lies. 13. 743 to 745. Engrossed in eating and sleeping, he does not realize that his destruction lies in the very same things. As time passes, the body grows, so does the indulgence in sense pleasures, and the shadow of death falls on life more and more, but he does not see it approaching. He who cannot see the approaching death by getting engrossed in sense pleasures is the king of the land of ignorance. 13. 747 to 753. Intoxicated by life, he remains without care about the approaching old age. During youth, he does not understand what would be his condition when he would become old. 13. 754. Such a person is really ignorant. When he sees a lame or a bent person, he mocks him, but he does not think that he too is going to reach the same condition. And even when he attains old age, which is the sign of approaching death delusion, about his own youth does not leave him. Understand that such a person is without doubt an abode of ignorance. 13. 760 to 763. He who remains carefree when the enemy sleeps, thinking that enmity is now over, perishes along with his family. In the same way, he does not bother about falling ill in future, as long as his appetite and sleep are good, and he is not ill at present. And in the company of his wife and children, and growing affluence, which intoxicates him, he does not see that he is going to be separated one day from his sons, etc., and his wealth. He who cannot see this future sorrow is ignorant. 13. 767 to 770. Indulgence. And he who lets the sense organs go astray without restraint is also ignorant. In the prime of his youth, supported by wealth, he indulges in all sorts of pleasures, whether proper or improper, does what should not be done, longs for the impossible, and thinks about things he should not think of. He enters where he should not, asks for what he should not take, touches things which he should not touch, and does all the things one should not even think about. He goes to places where he should not go, sees what he should not see, eats what he should not eat, and feels satisfied in it instead. He keeps company of those he should not, maintains relations with those he should not, and behaves in a manner he should not behave. He listens to what he should not and blabbers about things about which he should not speak, but does not realize that he will get the blame for it. He does things which please the body and the mind without thinking about their propriety. But the thought that it will result in his committing sin, or he will have to suffer in hell, does not enter his mind. Association with such a person leads to the spread of ignorance in the world, to such an extent that it can even battle with sages. 13. 771 to 780. Attachment to wife at the cost of parents. Now listen to some more characteristics. His attachment is totally towards his home and his wife, and he cannot get his mind away from them. 13. 781 to 783. He loves his home like his parents, love an only child born in old age, and he does not know anything other than his wife, whose body he worships without any thought about who I am, or what I should do. Just as the mind of a great sage gets totally engrossed in Brahman, resulting in stoppage of the worldly actions, an ignorant person surrenders himself completely to his wife, and does not care for his losses, public shame, or slander. He keeps himself in her good books and dances to her tunes. Like a greedy person toils for money, even by hurting his friends and relatives. He gives little to charity, and does not do many righteous deeds. He cheats persons from his family and clan, but gives his wife plenty, fulfilling all her wants. He somehow manages to perform worship of his family deity, bluffs to his guru. He tells his parents excuses that there is not enough money to give to them, but brings various articles of pleasure, and the best things he comes across for his wife. He serves his wife with unstinted dedication, like a devotee lovingly devoted to his family deity. He gives the best and costly articles to his wife, but for other persons in the family, he does not give enough even for bare survival. If somebody gives improper looks to his wife, or behaves with her improperly, he feels as if the end of the world has come. He satisfies her every command. His wife is everything to him, and he feels special love for children born of her. Whatever things she possesses and her wealth are more valuable to him than his own life. Such a person is the root of ignorance, and to gain strength from him, he is ignorance personified. 13. 788 to 804. Thought. Slave to pleasure and sorrows. He reaches the height of happiness when he gets the thing he likes, and he sinks due to sorrow when he gets what he does not like. One who worries because of favorable and unfavorable circumstances, however highly intelligent he may be, is in reality an ignorant person. 13. 805 to 806. He is devoted to me, but that devotion is with a material objective in mind. He makes a show of my devotion, but keeps his sights on pleasures. If he does not get them after being devoted to me, then he gives up the devotion, saying that the talk of God, etc., is all lies. Like an ignorant peasant, he sets up different deities, and after failing with one, he goes to the next. He joins that guru tradition where there is a great pomp and show, receives guru mantra from him, and considers others as ordinary. He behaves cruelly with living creatures, but showers special love on a stone idol. But his love is not steady in one single place. He makes my idol and installs it in one corner of the house, and himself he goes on pilgrimage to places of other deities. He offers devotion towards his family deity, and on auspicious occasions, he worships other deities. After installing me in the house, he makes vows to other deities. On the day of Shraddha, he belongs to the forefathers. He worships cobras on Nag Panchami day, as much as he worships me on Ekadashi day. On Chaturthi day, he becomes a devotee of Ganapati, and on Chaturdashi day, he avers, O Mother Durga, I am a devote of only you. He leaves the daily rituals and incidental actions during Navaratri, and sits for the reading of Navachandi, and on Sunday gives an offering of Kichadi to the deity Bhairoba. Then on Monday he rushes to Shivalinga for offering bell leaves, and thus he somehow manages to perform the worship ritual of all deities. That devotee performs the worship ritual of all deities without taking rest for a moment, just like a prostitute who demonstrates her love for all the people in the town. Such a devotee, who every now and then rushes to different deities, is ignorance reincarnated. 13,800 to 823. Dislikes quiet and holy places, and he also is ignorant who feels disgusted at the sight of quiet forests meant for penance, places of pilgrimage. He who feels happy living in the town, likes to sit in a crowd and likes to gossip, is nothing but ignorant. 13. 824 to 825. Prefers black arts to holy knowledge. Such a person, who has only book knowledge, laughs at the real knowledge which leads to self-realization. He does not look at Upanishads. He does not like the science of yoga, and his mind does not turn towards spiritual science. His mind wanders here and there like a wayward cattle demolishing the wall, of intellect tending towards the thoughts of soul. He is clever in the ritualistic technique. He knows the Puranas by heart, and he is such an expert astrologer that whatever he predicts happens. He is skilled in sculpture and architecture, expert in culinary art, and he knows the mantras from Atharvaveda, black magic, charm, voodoo, etc. There is nothing more left for him to learn in the science of love. He gives discourses on Mahabharata, and other branches of knowledge stand attentively before him in person. He is skilled in medicine, and there is none who is more well-versed than him. He discusses Smritis. He knows the secret of snake charming, and he has mastery on the vocabulary of Vedas. He is expert in grammar, and learned in science of justice. But only regarding the knowledge of the self he is congenital blind. He may be considered as an authority on the principles of every branch of science, but that is all in vain, which is like a child born at an inauspicious time, unlucky for his father. Ignore him. 13. 826 to 835. Except for the spiritual science, all other branches of knowledge are meaningless. Therefore, Arjuna, remember that a person with only book knowledge is a fool who has not realized the self. His body has grown out of the seed of ignorance, and his learning is a creeper of this ignorance. Whatever he speaks is the flower of ignorance, and whatever righteous path he practices is the fruit of the ignorance too. Is there any need of telling that one who does not believe in knowledge of the self has not understood its meaning? No. 13. 839 to 843. How can a person who is not acquainted with knowledge of the self can find its subject matter? That is the soul. One need not make complicated arithmetic to tell that a person does not understand the principles of knowledge. 13. 846 to 847. Turn your back to ignorance. The characteristics of ignorance are contained in the 18 characteristics of knowledge I had explained to you earlier. The characteristics of knowledge, when applied in reverse, become the characteristics of ignorance. 13. 849 to 851. Arjuna, turn your back to the characteristics of ignorance which I have just told you, and make a good and firm resolve regarding knowledge. By means of that pure knowledge you will realize its object, namely, the Brahman. 13. 862 to 863. Object of knowledge. Now I shall tell you about the object of knowledge. Brahman is called the object of knowledge because it cannot be achieved by any means other than knowledge, and after it is attained, there is nothing left for the sage to be done further, because the knowledge unifies him with itself. After its attainment, the seeker gives up worldly matters, and remains immersed in the bliss of the Brahman. That object is such that it has no beginning, and naturally it is called Supreme Brahman. If one goes to deny its existence, then one can see it in the form of the universe. And if one goes to say that universe itself is the Supreme Brahman, then it is illusion, Maya, because it does not have form, color, or shape. Also, it is not visible, and neither it can see. Then how can anyone say that it exists? And if its existence is denied, then wherefrom have the principles like Mahat, etc. have sprung? The speech became dumb, because one cannot at all affirm or deny its existence, and even the thought about it could not proceed further. Just as earth is seen in the form of a pot, similarly Brahman has taken the form of the universe and has pervaded it throughout. 13. 865 to 873. It fills all places all the time, and is not different from place and time. The very actions performed by gross and subtle things are its hands. Therefore Brahman has been called Vishwa Ba, or hands of the universe, because it inspires actions everywhere, all the time, and in all ways. And it is present everywhere at the same time. Therefore, it is called Vishwataspatwai, having feet everywhere. Like the sun, it observes all forms by its light, therefore even if it does not have eyes. Vedas have cleverly called it Vishwachakshu, or eyes of the universe. It is present always and everywhere on everyone's head. Therefore it is called Vishwamurta, or intellect of the universe. The form of fire is its mouth because it accepts all things through the fire. Therefore Vedas have called Brahman as Vishwatamukh, or mouth of the universe. And its ears engulf all sounds, just as space engulfs all objects. And it is because of this that we call Brahman as one which listens everywhere. It is because of its all-pervasiveness that this simile has been used, otherwise how can one speak in terms of hands, feet, eyes, etc., about something which is the essence of void or nothing? How can there be the sense of pervader and pervaded in the Brahman, which is everywhere? But this differentiation had to be made in order to explain what the Brahman is. Just as for indicating zero or nothing one writes a small dot, similarly to explain monism one has to use dualism. If this is not done, then all dialogue between guru and disciple will stop. It is for this reason that it has been customary to explain non-dualism using the language of dualism. 13, 874 to 890. How Brahman pervades objects. Now listen to how Brahman pervades objects which are visible to the eyes. 13, 891. That Brahman appears to be in all objects, like, for example, the water or liquid principle which occurs in water. 13, 895. Because of the shape of the pot, the sky appears to be round, or because a hut is rectangular. The sky also looks rectangular, but the sky does not have any shape, round or rectangular. Similarly, though objects have attributes, the Brahman, which pervades them, does not have attributes. That Brahman appears to be like mind and other organs, or like the three attributes. But just as sweetness of jaggery does not lie in the shape of its block, the mind and attributes are not real Brahman. 13, 898 to 901. In plain words, it is different from the mind and the attributes. The relations between name and form and the differences in duties for different castes are applicable to the form and not to the Brahman. Brahman is not the same as attributes, and it is not related to attributes, but there is an illusion of their appearing in it. 13, 904 to 907. Therefore the ignorant think that the attributes belong to the Brahman Brahman. The attributeless Brahman holds the attributes without any relation with them, but that is only an illusion, and not real. Therefore one should not mention attributes in relation to the Brahman. 13, 910 to 912. Same Brahman pervades all. Though Brahman exists in all moving and non-moving objects, it is the same entity. That which is indestructible and pervades the entire universe is the object to be known. That which is inside the body as well as outside, is near as well as far, and is unique without duality, totally pervades everything. 13, 900, and 13 to 915. Its pervasion is as a single entity without break in all four types of beings, namely born through sex, eggs, sweat, and seeds. It is also the cause of the creation of the universe. 13, 917, 920. Therefore, just as the waves are supported by the sea, so is the universe supported by Brahman. At the time of creation, we call it Brahmadeo. During sustenance, we properly call it Vishnu. And when the universe dissolves, we call it Rudra. And when all the three attributes vanish, we call it cipher, 0. And that which swallows the nothingness of space and destroys the three attributes is the great cipher as agreed by Upanishads. 13. 921 to 926. Brahman. The basic principle in all principles that Brahman is the igniting principle in the fire. Nectar of life, the moon provides to the plants and the power of sight, by which the sun oversees the affairs of the world. The galaxies of stars brighten by its light, and by its brightness the sun easily spreads in the universe. It is the root of the origin, growing of the growth, intelligence of the intellect and life force of life. It is mental power of the mind, vision of the eyes, hearing of the ears, power of speech of the tongue, vitality of life force, feet of the motion, activity of the action. Formation, growth, and destruction occur by its power. The five principles earth, water, air, fire, and space derive their characteristics from it. In short, all objects appear in the universe because of it, and actually, everything is Brahman, and no duality exists. Once it is experienced, the seer and the seen, the means and the end become one, and the difference between knowledge, the object of the knowledge, and the knower vanishes. One cannot speak of duality in its context, and it exists in the heart of all. 13. 927 to 939. Thus I have made clear to you what field is. Also, I explained to you what knowledge is. That I discussed the characteristics of ignorance, and now I have explained to you what object to be known is by analytical reasoning. 13. 940 to 943. Easiest method to attain me, Arjuna. My devotees come to me longing for my attainment after thinking about all these things. By giving up the attachment to the body, to concentrate their mind and feelings on me. These devotees, after they know me, take me in exchange for their ego, and thus become one with me. I have thus planned the easiest method for being one with me. 13. 944 to 947. Purush and Prakriti, Sankhya, Arjuna. If I had merely told you that soul is everywhere, then you would not have believed it. Therefore, considering that you are dull-witted, I explain to you the same Brahman in 4 parts. Considering your ability to concentrate, I divided the Brahman into 4 parts, namely, the field, knowledge, object to be known, and ignorance. If even after this you have not understood my explanation, then I shall explain the same thing to you in another way. Instead of dividing into 4 parts, I shall divide into only 2 parts, namely soul and non-soul, Purush and Prakriti. Listen to it. 13. 949 to 955. I shall tell you about the 2 parts, Prakriti and Purush. Yogis call this path Sankhya for explaining, which I have incarnated as Kapil. Listen to the pros and cons of it. 13. 957 to 959. Purush is without beginning, and so is Prakriti, and they are both stuck to each other like day and night, or like a shadow to a form. What I explain to you as field must be understood here as Prakriti, and the knower of the field is the same as Purush. Even if the names are different, the principles to which they refer are the same. 13. 960 to 964. Dada. Purush is the power, and Prakriti is the one which causes all actions to take place. Intellect, organs and mind, etc., which are responsible for feelings and passions, and the 3 attributes sattva, raja and tama, all arise from Prakriti and are the cause of creation of karma. 13. 966 to 968. Creation of ego, desire, and intellect. First create ego in Prakriti, and make the individual involved in some cause. The procedures used for achieving a desired object is called action. When desire becomes strong, it activates the mind and makes it gets the tasks done through the organs. And that is what is called the effect of the Prakriti. Therefore, Prakriti is the root of the action, cause, and effect. When the trio comes together, the Prakriti becomes active, but the nature of its actions is governed by the 3 attributes. The action in which the sattva attribute predominates is a good righteous action. That which takes place due to raja attribute is a medium or mixed type of action, and that which takes place due to tama attribute is a prohibited and unrighteous action. The good and bad actions thus occur due to prakriti, and gives rise to pleasure and pain respectively. This pleasure and pain are experienced by the Purush. As long as this pleasure and pain appears real, the prakriti remains busy in creating them, and the Purush in experiencing them. The affairs of this couple, prakriti and Purush, are strange. Whatever the wife earns, the husband enjoys without himself making any efforts. This couple does not come together, and yet prakriti, the wife, gives birth to this universe. 13, 969 to 980. Actionless Purush and Gunamaya Prakriti, he who is without form, body, and actionless, cripple, without attributes, wealth, unique and older than the oldest of the objects, is called Purush. Nothing can be said about whether he is female or neuter. He does not have eyes, ears, hands, feet, form, color, and name. He has no organs. Such is the husband of Prakriti, who has to experience pain and pleasure. Though he is actionless, unattached, and non-indulgent, the Prakriti makes him experience the pain and pleasure. This Prakriti uses her form and attributes to create a strange drama. Therefore, the Prakriti is called Gunamayi, or one having attributes. She ever takes a new form every moment, and its vitality makes even the passive objects active. Because of her names are assigned, love is felt and sense organs are able to sense. She makes mind even though it is neuter, cannot create anything, to wander in the three worlds. Such is her capability. 13, 981 to 990. Play of Prakriti. This Prakriti, which is like a big island of illusion, which pervades everything, has created emotions. Passions are fostered with her support. Delusion blooms because of her. She is known as Divine Maya. 13, 991 to 992. She makes the language grow, creates this material world, and ceaselessly invades it with materialistic way of life. All arts, skills are born of her. Desires, knowledge, and actions are created from her. All the tunes and sounds are minted out by her. She is the home of miracles. In fact, everything that happens in the world is her play. The creation of the world and its dissolution are her morning and evening respectively. She is thus the wonderful illusionist. 13, 993 to 996. She is the mate of the lonely Purush, companion of the unattached, Brahman, and she resides in the void. Her capability is so high that she keeps the uncontrollable Purush under control. Actually, the Purush is not attached to anything, but this Prakriti becomes everything for him. She becomes the creation of the self-born, form of the formless Purush, and his very existence and base. 13, 997 to 1000. Illusion of attributes. Thus, by her strength, Prakriti creates passions in that dispassionate Purush, and his effulgence wanes like that of the moon on the new moon day. 13, 10 to 1080. Once the Purush surrenders to the Prakriti, its brightness vanishes, and he has to experience the effect of the attributes. By association with her, he has to suffer the impact of birth and death. When moonlight is reflected in moving water, people see many reflections and feel that there are many moons. Similarly, by association with attributes, it appears as if the birthless Purush takes birth, but that is not true. Just as a sannyasi sees in his dream that he is born in a Shudra caste, similarly the Purush feels that he has taken birth in a low or high caste, but that is not true, and therefore the Purush does not have to experience the effects of karma. It only appears to him so because of the association with the attributes. 13, 1014 to 1021. Purush is beyond Prakriti. Prakriti has the support of the Purush, but there is a vast difference between the two. This Purush is on the bank of the river, that is Prakriti, and though his reflection is in the river, it is not carried away by the current. Prakriti is created and is dissolved, but Purush is eternal. Therefore, he controls everything right from Brahmadeo downwards. Prakriti exists because of him, and by his power alone, she creates the world. Therefore, he is the Lord of Prakriti. The world which has been going on since endless past dissolves in him at the end of the aeon. He is the Lord of the great Brahman, that is the Prakriti. He controls the whole universe and envelops it entirely by his expanse. Really speaking, he is the supreme soul which is said to exist in the body. 13:22 to 10:29. One who understands that this Purush is one, and the only one, and all the actions and attributes belong to the Prakriti, that Purush and Prakriti are like the form and the shadow, or like water and mirage, may be considered as having understood the difference between Purush and Prakriti. Even if he performs action by virtue of possessing a body, does not get tainted by them. He does not feel attachment to his body while he lives, and when he dies is not reborn. In this unworldly way, the understanding of the difference between Purush and Prakriti becomes favorable to him. There are many ways by which this understanding will arise in your heart. Listen. 13:10:30 to 10:36. Total. Purification of the individual. Some people purify gold, that is the soul, which is tainted by attributes, in the fire of thought by coating it with layers of listening, pondering, and longing for it, and burning away the impurity of the worldly attributes. By burning the 36 impure principles, they separate away the pure soul, and see it by the eyes of meditation within themselves. Some meditate on it using the principles of Sankhya philosophy, or by the philosophy of action, and attain liberation. 13:10:37 to 1040. Thus people adopt different ways to get safely out of this whirlpool of life and death. But there are others who, by ridding themselves of pride, keep faith in Guru's words. They listen attentively and respectfully to whatever the Guru says and offer themselves and all their possessions to the him. Guru cares about what is good and bad for them, feels for their miseries and mitigates them, makes them feel relaxed and happy by inquiring after them. They keep aside all their work in order to be able to hear his words and are prepared to sacrifice their life for him. Such people also finally cross the ocean of the birth-death cycles. Thus, in this world of mortals, there are many ways to experience the Supreme Soul. I shall present you with the cream of the philosophy of these methods. 13:10:41 to 1000. 10:50. Interaction of field and the knower. The entire world is created from the mutual interaction of the field and the knower of the field, both of which I explained to you. 13:10:51 to 10:52. All the movable and immovable things, and the entity which we call jiva or life, is created out of the union of these two. Therefore, materials or persons are not different from Purush. 13:10:55 to 10:56. Even though cloth is not same as thread, it is made of it. In the same way, one should see by insight the sameness between Purush and the material world one, i.e., the Prakriti. You should experience the fact that all creatures are different forms of the same entity, and they are basically the same. Their names are different, their behavior also is different, and they appear different outwardly. But if by these considerations you sustain in your mind the idea that they are all different, then you will not escape from this birth and death cycles in a million years. Individuals may have crooked shapes, but the soul is straight. Even though there are piles of lives, the soul inside all of them is same. The physical appearance of individuals is elusive and destructible, but the souls inside all of them is indestructible. Thus, he who understands that soul is not different from the individual, but does not possess the attributes of the individual, is the man of vision among all men of knowledge, and the most fortunate of men. 13. 1057 to 1068. Man of knowledge is liberated while in body, this body made up of the 5 principles and full of wind. Biles and phlegm is like a horrible bag full of the 3 attributes and the organs. It is plainly a scorpion with 5 stingtails. It is burning in 5 types of fire, and in this cage of the body, that is the lion, that is the individual, is entrapped. Even though the body is like this, the soul is indestructible. Arjuna, only a man of knowledge does not harm himself, even though he lives in the body, and ultimately reaches the state of the Brahman. To attain that state, yogis, by the power of their knowledge of yoga, cross millions of births and leave their body deciding that they will not be reborn. The supreme Brahman, which is beyond the name and form, and is in the realm of vibrations, sound, is the final resting place of all destinations, including that of liberation. He who does not permit ideas of differences between individuals, due to their external differences in appearance, experiences the bliss of the Brahman, while he is still alive in his body. Just as same light emanates from different lamps, the soul pervades everything right from the beginning. Arjuna, he who has this outlook of equality is not caught in the throes of birth-death cycles. He is very fortunate, and I sing his praises often because he looks at everything with eyes of equality. 13. 1069 to 1079. And he fully knows that it is Prakriti which causes actions through mind, intellect, the 5 sense organs and 5 organs of action. 13. 1080. That Prakriti, aided by the 3 attributes, sets up different kinds of acts in the light of the soul, but the soul itself remains steady and unaffected by it. He who has decided that this is so has realized the soul. 13. 1082 to 1083. Even otherwise, Arjuna, he who sees unity in the diverse shapes of living beings, consider him as having attained Brahman. 13. 1084. When one is certain in his mind that all creatures are created from the same soul, then it can be said that he's found the boat that is the wealth of the Brahman, for crossing the ocean of birth and death cycles. Everywhere he casts his eyes, he sees all is full of Brahman. He attains endless bliss. Thus you should completely know by experience the arrangement of Prakriti and Purush. The benefit you have gained is similar to an opportunity to gargle with nectar. 13. 1087 to 1090. Now I am going to tell you 1 or 2 more profound ideas. 13. 1092. Soul lives in body as a projection, what is known by the name Supreme Soul, even though it exists in the body, always remains in its pure state. 13. 1094. Actually, it is not correct to say that soul resides in the body. The soul is said to be in the body in the same way as when one looks at one's face in the mirror and say it is his face. It is totally meaningless to say that soul is related to the body. 13. 1096 to 1098. Body is strung in the thread of the 5 principles, and it rotates in the wheel of birth and death. This body is like a ball of butter, inserted in the mouth of the fire that is time. It vanishes in the short span of time that a fly takes to flutter its wings. If he falls in fire, it turns to ashes, and if it falls prey to a dog, then it turns to fecal matter. If it escapes these 2, then a bunch of worms is created in it. Thus, this body comes to a disgusting end. Though the body reaches this fate, the soul is eternal, self-illuminating, self-sufficient, and beginningless. 13. 1103 to 1107. Because it is without attributes, it is neither without phases, nor can it be said that it has phases. It is neither active nor without action, neither fat nor thin, neither visible nor invisible, neither bright nor dull, neither less nor much. Because it is a void, it is neither full nor empty. It is in no way without company, nor it has company. It is neither shapeless, nor does it have shape. Since it has the form of self, it has neither bliss nor sorrow. It is neither one nor many. It is neither free nor bound. It is without characteristics. It is neither this much nor that much, neither ready-made nor prepared, neither able to speak nor dumb. It is not born along with the creation of the universe, and does not get destroyed when it gets destroyed. It is the place of dissolution of being and not being. It is dimensionless, therefore. It cannot be measured or described. It neither grows nor diminishes, fades, or gets exhausted. Such is the nature of the soul. It is unbroken, therefore. It neither takes the form of the body, nor rejects it, but remains as it was. Just as days and nights occur in the sky, so do bodies are acquired and given up by this soul. Therefore he does not do anything in the body, nor cause it to be done, nor does it get involved in any of the affairs of the body. But nothing happens to its nature. Not only that, even though it is in the body, it is unattached to it. Though soul is in all bodies, it does not get stained by its characteristics. I am telling you again and again to take into consideration the characteristics of the soul, that the knower of the field is different from the field. 13. Ev 8 to 1119, 121 to 122. A magnet by its proximity moves iron, but iron is not the same as magnet. The same principle is applicable to the soul and the body. There's fire hidden inside wood, but wood is not fire, and soul has to be viewed in the same way. Just as the sun is alone in the sky, but illuminates the whole world, in the same way the soul illuminates all the living bodies. 13. 1123 to 1128. The intellect which understands the difference between the field and the knower of the field is the intellect with real sight. It alone can assimilate the essence of the meaning of the words. It is for understanding the difference between the field and the knower of the field that the wise persons frequent the abodes of sages. It is for that alone that the intellectuals acquire the valuable peace and study shastras. It is for that knowledge that men practice yoga with high ambitions. And some people, by taking the body and other worldly matters insignificant, respectfully serve the saints. Thus they shed their worries by following different paths of knowledge. I surrender my knowledge to the knowledge of those who understand the difference between the field and knower of the field. 13. 1129 to 1035. And they know the real nature of this Prakriti or Maya, which is spread everywhere in different forms and manifestations, like the 5 principles. 13. 136. Those who are convinced in their heart that Prakriti is different from the Purush have attained Brahman. 13. 1140. The Brahman is more extensive than sky. It is the outer border of Prakriti, and after attaining it, the feelings of similarity or dissimilarity vanish. Shape, feeling of being alive, and duality vanish in it, and it remains as one and only one supreme principle. This supreme principle is attained by those who understand that the Purush and Prakriti are different. 13. 140 to 143.